Let's get straight into the action because, Caro, I sensed over dinner tonight when we were chatting that you have moved a little bit on Dustin Martin staying at the Richmond Football Club. We believe there's offers around and maybe even a mindset change with the big man himself.
Look, I've been adamant all year that it would be the wrong thing for Richmond to let Dustin Martin go and for Dustin Martin to go. In fact, I thought the talk about Sydney was a complete furphy, Ed. I'm now hearing that perhaps it's on. It's certainly something that has been considered. Sydney have shown some interest, you know, not directly necessarily, in Dustin Martin. And Dustin Martin, according to people at the club, just isn't quite as engaged as he was in the past. Now, obviously, he started the year with a broken heart. He lost his father.
Yeah.
It was a shock loss at the end of last year. Took some time off, came back to the club, played a great first half last week, but obviously physically is still getting his body right. Now out with a hamstring. And for the first time, I think there are people at Richmond who are looking at life beyond Dustin Martin. We spoke to the Sydney CEO, Tom Harley, on 3AW a few days ago about a couple of players.
Would you ever look at Jordan De Goey, who could be on the open market by the end of the year?
No, we wouldn't be looking at Jordan De Goey.
So Dustin Martin?
No.
What if he said, Tom, I want to come to Sydney to live?
I haven't been asked about Dustin Martin for about a month.
Now, look, I'm not reading too much into that, Matthew, but I just didn't feel it was quite as definitive as Jordan De Goey. And then we've got a situation where... Can we just hear what Tom Harley also said, because he's a big part of this conversation, about Lance Franklin as well?
Will Lance Franklin be playing for Sydney next year?
Look, we're in really, let's call them a lot of goodwill in the conversations that we're having behind closed doors with Lance. I think everyone would like Lance to play, and all things being equal, he does.
Clearly, to get Dustin Martin to the club, the Buddy Franklin offer would be significantly less. Well, we know he's going to play for a lot less if he does play on next year, but I just feel there's a bit going on behind the scenes. Richmond are obviously trying to keep Liam Baker. Yep. They're obviously looking at Hopper. They're looking at Taranto. So I don't know if it's the right decision, though, Matthew, and I hope I'm wrong, but I'm really worried that I'm right.
I think it'd be a sad thing for people at Richmond, because wouldn't you love for Dustin Martin to be a one-club player because of the champion he's been at the Richmond Football Club? But I think if it does happen, I don't think it's the worst thing for the Richmond Footy Club. Dustin's just turned 31. He's got, what would he be on, 1.2 to 1.4 a season? So there's a lot of money at 31 years of age. I reckon it's a big risk for the Sydney Swans, to be honest, to be taking on a 31-year-old, and he's not going to be going there for 2 years. He'll be going there on a 3 or 4 year contract. Yeah. So it allows amazing options for Richmond.
I'm polar opposite.
Yeah.
He's a legend of the club. And we're taking a short-term view here. The grieving process, he was incredibly close to his father. He has got a broken heart. It's 16 weeks, it's 4 months. Everyone goes through different personalities, work through the stages differently. Now, he'll come out. There's no greater club. Brendan Gale is a strong leader. All the resources, this problem or this in Dustin's life can be worked through, and he can come out the other side. And I'd love him to come out the other side of the Richmond Football Club, and I think it's the right thing. We'll lose him in Sydney. Buddy Franklin, they're not talking about the quantum. They're talking about how do we do it? Is it a coaching job? Is it an ambassador? That's what's going on there. Dusty, in my view...
You don't think they're lowballing Lance?
I think they're saying, Lance, this is the figure. Now, how do we get to it?
Now, I was going to say, there is no chance that Lance Franklin is going to get a haircut. He might come down in the salary cap. There's no doubt about that. But his promotional value and what he stands for, particularly in Indigenous football, will mean that he will have enough money coming in from third parties or second parties or whatever. Even the AFL will pay him to stay up there. There's no doubt about that. And, you know, if ever there's a player you want to play until he can't walk out the gate one more time, it's Lance Franklin. So I think if they wanted to go for these two blokes to be in the one team, I reckon Sydney would make it happen, and I don't think the AF would get in the way too much. I'll put it this way, I don't think Mike Fitzpatrick would be rubbing anybody out if this was able to come together.
And geographically, you can't shift from trauma. Trauma needs to be addressed and worked through, and that's what's occurring here.
To Sydney
just going to Sydney, geographically, he will still and is, and respectfully, working through the stages of grief.
But how does going to Sydney help his grief?
I'm saying it doesn't.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thinking is that getting out of a footy environment and being in the spotlight all the time.
So is there anything, just to finish on the footy environment, we saw during the week him getting door stopped, the most benign door stopping you'll ever see, by the way. Everyone was pretty respectful. But there's been a bit of hoo-ha about all that. Is that part of it that...
Completely. That was where it started. I didn't believe it. I now think there is a semblance of truth. I hope Ross is right. Very quickly, as a sideline, the manager, Ralph Carr, of Dustin Martin, who couldn't deliver Dustin to North Melbourne back in 2017, I gather has randomly offered his services now to the North Melbourne Football Club as a talent acquisition manager.
What, and halfback flanker as well? Or?
Sort of NFL style.
Yeah.
Well, it's not as silly as it sounds.
No, it's not. It's not. No.
NFL, talent, because...
Well, they need something.
They haven't got the gravitas to pull them through. So Ralph Carr, the best player in the game.
You laughed, though. Is he
but Eddie's the big thinker.
But is he respected in the industry to be able to land talent to AFL?
Well, the thing about with Ralph Carr, he'll do the deal. He'll get it because he doesn't barrack for anybody. He barracks for Carlton. He was on the board at Carlton. But when I say that, he will barrack for his client or whoever's got the checkbook. And that's a very American approach. But that's the way they have to do some things. So it's not the silliest thing in the world. I don't know whether he could do it with his own talent book at the same time. I mean, you talk about conflicts of interest.
No, but if he gets the talent, he can demonstrate.
Yeah.
I can make you the biggest commercial property in Australia if Dusty, if you perform.
There's a bloke called Jeff Brown, who's the president of Collingwood now. He delivered Kelvin Templeton and Peter Moore to Melbourne back in 1981, 82. 82 was, I think. And so it's not unprecedented that a manager can do this.